All right, so we got 9 people that have turned this in so far from earlier. I know you guys can finish this today. You got plenty of time. I'm going to go through the speed run of the presentation here just to make sure everybody understands what we're doing. So the first thing that you need to understand when we get into the code here, first set, this is, by the way, is lab activity 3.1 right here, basically in a nutshell. And I want students to go through this example here. A little bit of a trick here where you need to do this delta location. So it's add actor world offset. I'm going to go through this demo right now in my level. First thing I'm going to do is say File, New Level, and do a VR Basic. And the reason I'm doing VR Basic is it gives me a pretty world to work in, and I can grab something like this. This is just an actor, any actor. In fact, I could grab a couple of them if I wanted to, but what I want you to do is click on this and go to Blueprints, and from Blueprints, I want you to do Convert Selection to Blueprint Class.
Hello, Tech Campus students and staff. Please continue to wear your mask, covering your nose and mouth at all times. Thank you.
Once we do this, we just need to do Select. Just take the defaults at this point. Let's not worry about the details. And we want to go to the event graph, which is right here. What we're going to do is we're going to utilize something called the event tick, which is an expensive operation, but it's got a built-in looping feature. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to type in to find the node that's been highlighted in the sample here. Add actor world offset. So in here, when I do that, I'm looking for add actor world offset. So by finding and highlighting that, the next little trick, just to show you, this is the execution path. The thing that varies is delta location right now here is 3 different pieces of information, but you'll notice on this, it's broken up 3 directions this way, each getting their own pin to wire to. So to do that, to make that happen, what we want to do is right-click on delta location and select something that says Split Structure Pin. Now we have the 3 different values. To get to the delta location, which is a float value, from seconds, we want to do a multiplication. So if I drag out here, I type in multiply, and I'm going to do float times float. The color green indicates that these are float values. I'm going to drag it to X, and the value in the sample is 100. With 100, the thing I need to do is do a compile on this and a save, and I should end up with a blueprint in my folder that I can bring into the level. In this instance, it's called Cube Blueprint. This one is one right here. I'm going to drag a second one out into my level. If you only have one of them in your level, guys, I'd like you to put a couple of instances out there. And I want you to experiment with doing some things like scaling it up, maybe make one a little bit bigger. Maybe you make it rotate it a little bit differently so it's at a slightly different angle. Maybe make one smaller. And again, rotate it to a different angle so that just makes it more interesting. And when you play this level with the blueprints now, as opposed to just regular static meshes, they'll actually have code that pushes them in anything that they hit, either along or in the direction of X. So this would be a proper implementation of this set of code here. And these things can be more or less interacted with here. But they only just do that because the code tells them to. So as a quick recap on the blueprint in the event graph, we've added 2 nodes. We did a split on a pin. And by hijacking the event tick, it happens over and over again. If I actually broke this, break this link, and I were to wire it into the begin play, it's only going to happen once. It's not going to repeat because this only happens once. So if I recompile this and run it again, Those objects only move once. They don't continue to move. Not even perceptible unless you're looking right at it. If I move my player start right next to it, we might have a better chance of seeing it move just a little bit. But I got a feeling it happens so quick that we won't even notice it moving. Don't even notice it. So there's a big difference in these two events. One is the tick, and the other one is begin play. There's nothing that prevents you from having it happen multiple times. This would be kind of senseless, but you can drag these execution pins to go to more than one spot. Now it's going to happen once as well as the other. This might spawn an error because they're both trying to do the same thing at the same time. So let's try that. Doesn't flag an error, and it works. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do as a sample in this lecture is we're talking about the idea that we can take an actor and we can actually add this code using an event called spacebar to spawn an actor of an explosion. Did everyone get this one to work in class right now?
Yes.
Excellent. Everybody did. Great. So what we've got right now is we've got a sample where we took our character. Now, if you're not sure how to get to the character, quick reminder, if you click on play and you press the F8 key, I now have ejected from the player. So what I can do here is I can browse to the asset. This is the blueprint for the third person. I'm going to double click to open it. And on the event graph, which has already got a lot of stuff in it, I'm going to add a set of code here by right clicking. Oh, by the way, I need to stop my execution. I can't add to it while it's running. So I'm going to look for something like spacebar. You guys know where astronauts go for drinks after work? They go to the spacebar. When the spacebar is pressed, what I want to do here is I'm going to spawn a particle system. Spawn actor from class. It doesn't know what class until we select it. So if we look here, we can look for something like explosion. It's called BluePrint. Do you guys have to restart your project to find it or recompile?
Only if you didn't have engine content.
Huh. Engine content. Engine content. So you need to have show engine content in your browser?
Yeah.
Interesting.
You have to have engine content. And if it's not there,
Show engine content. It's there. You mean starter content?
Nope. Show engine content.
Okay, I had that on. I just turned it off and turned it back on again.
Weird.
It is weird. Double check the code here. Spawn actor blueprint effect explosion. Spawn actor, and then under class, I'm going to do for blueprint. This happened to a couple of students earlier today, so it's okay it's happening to me because I'd like to figure it out. That's really odd. I don't see it either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going
to restart it after showing engine content. You have to reopen the level.
But it was already for engine content, not starter. Engine content's there, and I think starter content is as well. And I'm not being argumentative. I'm just being clear. So if I go to my content, I've got engine content.
Yeah, and then I had to be an out to reopen the project.
You had to reopen it. Okay, so let's try blueprint. BLUE, if I can spell.
Just troubleshooting. So if engine content wasn't showing the explosion, you have to reopen like you're saying. You want to.
Yeah, I'm not finding it in here. So for some reason, that content's not showing up. So then you reopen your project.
Yeah, I just reopened the project and it worked.
Okay.
Come here.
I'm going to reopen the project, which might happen to some of you as well.
Jump. No, I see that.
Don't look this jump.
I see it.
Don't. Just jump.
So here's some student samples when the finished project LA32 is done. As my project's reopening. Some students turned in just a print screen.
No,
Some did a video. I'm still recording my screen. I got to open my level.
Put it on a jump.
You really did just go.
I can only hear the beat.
There we go.
I can only hear the beat.
It's so dumb. That's so dumb.
How'd you find the sound file?
I just stole it off YouTube.
Oh.
So we are starting to play with sound files. That's good. The laughter in the background is a good thing.
A WAV file.
How do you convert a YouTube?
So remember, when you go to work with these, we need to make sure we stop.
Oh, or did you find like in the
And
description?
it's going to be spawn
Was
class.
that like your chorus?
Class we're going to drop down here. Blueprint effect explosion. You're right. Restart fixed. Thank you.
I know.
And what we need to do here is for the transform is we're going to find the actor's world location just to double check my understanding and my memory. It's get actor transform.
I love
Okay,
this.
so I'm going to do a get actor transform. Since the actor is the player itself, it works to find the activity.
Everyone laughing.
So I'm going to compile this.
the guy
Saves. Let's see if when I play my simulation here, go up to 11, first, there we go. If I jump, I get a blueprint effect of an explosion.
I'm sorry, bro.
This is what I call the basic fart bomb implementation. And it helps to show a couple things. All right, guys, if I get you back in front of your computers, am I still in a demo mode for you?
Yes.
Yes, good. So let's take a look at this third-person character in the blueprint, and let's talk about something. Notice that in my screen, I've got them carefully placed next to each other. I've got the word spacebar. This is the action for jump. This event called jump is actually an event that's set up so it will include the spacebar, but not just limited to the spacebar. And where this becomes important is if you want your game to run on different game controllers. Another way to do this would have been to hijack this and run this code over to there and not even bring in the spacebar. I would expect this to work exactly the same if I hijack the event rather for that as well. The only problem is I'm not jumping, okay? So that explains why we're doing two different wires. So, all right, interesting. I did not expect that to happen.
Then we can just rewire the execution path to be to the jump button.
I could put it like, yeah, I could put it in between here, right? I could take from pressed here to go into this side and then take the output from this one and go to the jump like that. Okay, yeah, let's try that version. Compile that. Give it a play. I got to click to make it happen. There we go. So now I'm just hijacking a different event. Still with the fart bomb.
Does that only explode once though?
Say again?
Does it explode only once though, or is that?
Every time you hit the spacebar, it spawns that sound as well, which can be changed. So I just want to make sure I've saved my current progress and get back into the presentation. Because what I want to talk about now is there's more than one event for a particular reason. Now what we're doing here, this is a smaller version of what we just did, is basically we're spawning an actor. And we can spawn actors that might be boxes that drop into the level, and we can delete them once they get out of range, like they're no longer usable to us. In fact, to destroy an actor, you'd set up some code like this. Do you see the function called destroy actor? Can you identify it on the blueprint here? Do you see the function called destroy actor?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. When do we destroy the actor?
After it tests health, it is
When you have
Less than 0 health.
less than 0.
Less than 0. So depending on how your game is set up, your player might be running around and looking at their health and it's equal to 0. They're going, hey, How come I'm not dead? I have 0 health.
That explains a lot.
This would be a glitch. Notice just below it, I've got the fix for it. If you use the conditional operator to compare less than or equal to, then somebody with 0 health would actually become destroyed, right? The other way to do it would be less than 1 or less than 0.1, depending on how your health value is set up as a float value or as an integer value. There's some good chaos going on out there, and I would suggest you continue to keep playing with this because you're going to learn. Take a look at this. This is something called call get all actors of class. That's like something like this. Hey, everybody, stand up for a minute. Everybody, stand up. That's when you get all actors of a class. Every student's on their feet. Tomorrow, we're all going to go to the snack bar.
No.
Okay, that's all actors of class. But this is considered an expensive operation. In the sample code, hey guys, stop touching body parts. It's COVID. You got to be careful. All right. Half the room just got very uncomfortable with that statement. This is a specific referencing an actor. This is like, hey, Thea, you can sit down now. Everybody else has got to stay standing. That would be a specific object reference. And sometimes, you guys can all sit down now. So that would be an example where you have either get all actors of a class, get it, class, you're all actors in a class, versus getting a specific actor. All right? So this picture is funny to me. It's funny because I remember when they were developing the Xbox, and I was at a branch in Seattle, and I was across the parking lot from the building where they were doing it, and I noticed all these game developers tended to be guys that had a lot of experience. They were full-blown adults, and they were building a gaming system. And that original Xbox controller was built for man-sized hands. And over time, it's gotten smaller. Now, it could be argued that, the parts were bigger back then, but I think the ergonomics were being determined by the people that were developing it, and it fit their hands, and that's why it got built that way. Do you recognize any other controllers out there?
Sega.
Sega is up here, yep.
The Dreamcast in the bottom.
Dreamcast, yep.
Is that NES control?
This looks like some kind of weird NES mod, doesn't it?
It looks like the Atari.
No, the Atari's got a big stick coming out of the middle of it.
Yeah.
But you could take the Sega and plug it right into the Atari. That was kind of interesting.
There's something I can't remember. It wasn't the.
So it might be that when you go to jump, you're not just going to press the space bar because you don't have a space bar on these controllers. It might be one of the action buttons. It might be A, B, X, triangle. And so the way that we handle that within our code is we actually have input mappings that basically can say, all right, so how are they going to control this? Are they going to use the mouse? Are they going to use a controller? And then we can do action buttons. And that's what you're playing with is when they do a jump. Notice in this particular image on the right here, the jump can be done using the space bar or the gamepad or the motion controller. So you can modify so that more than one event will trigger the jump. That way you're not coding for the specific button on the controller. You're coding the logic. Here's a second thing. It's the axis mappings. The axis allows things like, fine-tuning, like analog sticks, right? So you're moving around a little bit less than just a button press. And that's increasingly the level of detail that we're going for. They actually do make keyboards that have axis mapping. So the harder you press on a key, the more of an effect it can have. They're not standard. They're specialized, but they're available. Then we have these things called input action events. So you'll notice that the input action is something that relates to perhaps multiple possible things that will prompt it. And we were just playing around with this. This is exactly what we were just playing around with. So vocabulary words here are input and action and axis. Input, action, and axis. Those are in the quiz. If you're not sure, go back over the questions again. I've got hints if you get it wrong, and repeat the quizzes till you get to 100%. Just talked about this. Let's see, this one. Okay, so I believe that this is how you can flip your mouse sometimes people, do you guys ever work back and forth between a Mac and a Windows machine, and it's like paging up, paging down, scrolling's all like different? Yep. So the engine can handle both, and you can also put in some code to handle it. So this was the introduction. Now for your application in class, and this has been a fun activity for people. I'll show you some finished versions in a minute. You're going to go through, and you're going to be basically adding something to your level called Nav Mesh Bounds volume. Now here's my big suggestion to you. Go into your sample level before you do anything else. And let's do this from a top viewport. So follow along here, please. Go to your top viewport, and I want you to find what I call the bathtub. I want you to find this like one piece of geometry that becomes the whole bottom. It's called frozen room. And I want you to scale that frozen room up. Let's make it at least double size by using a value of 222, but you can go bigger, like 333. And make it bigger. Now, any of the other volumes that are out there, so let me switch to, let's say, left viewport. Like this might be your light mass importance volume. That needs to be scaled up as well so that it can actually hold whatever you're playing with there. And from this view, the first thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be adding an actor that you haven't played with before. So you can use the search classes here, and in the instructions it'll tell you. It's a mesh for your AI to follow. It's Nav Mesh Bounds. And so if you look for NAV, you're looking for the Mesh Bounds volume. It's got to be as big as the playable space. So go ahead and add the Nav Mesh Bounds into your level, please. So we're going to place an actor called Nav Mesh Bounds. Heard that? What was that?
Nothing. Something Raven's plotting. It's scheming. Scheming and plotting.
Well, at least we won't be disappointed by him. We might. So notice that as I'm doing this in the left viewport, I really am unclear on whether it's lined up front to back. So I'm going to switch to the front viewport. To see that, that's what I wanted to show you, is that you got to make sure you check it from both viewports to make sure it really covers both. You can touch F to show the overall focus or view on that. Just make sure that your Nav Mesh Bounds and your light mass importance volume. Another thing to make sure they're the same is you can actually go to location. You can right click and say copy, and then switch between the Nav Mesh and the light mass importance, and you can actually paste it. Go to location here, right click and say paste. So they're exactly the same. You could put them in so that they're in the same position or scaling. In this case, I'm not going to take the time to do all that, but it's a nice little feature that you can do the copy and paste. Make sure your light mass importance and your Nav Mesh Bounds both cover your playable space. They can be bigger than, but they can't be smaller than that. So what that does is that sets up an area where you can have this very simple AI-ish type event called player chase in your level. So are you following along with me? Anyone got any questions? I can pause this demo if you have questions. This is posted to the Google Classroom. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually copy this third-person character. So how do you duplicate?
Right-click duplicate.
This is not a story about the birds and the bees. We're going to find that third-person character. We're going to right-click and we're going to go to duplicate. Control W happens to be a shortcut key. This is going to be our AI guy, and then put your initials in there if you want to. So here's our AI guide, and I just opened him up, and I'm going to look in the viewport for a minute. And this is going to be the guy that's going to chase us. So we want to probably make him look a little different. We can override his materials later. On your own character, I'd like you to have your logo on the chest. We've gone through that. But what we're really concerned with here is the event graph. And we're going to use these pawns to actually chase us around by following the instructions here. And we're going to go in the event graph and notice this, delete all the events and actions. Yep, that's right. You're going to delete all the events and actions that are in the event graph because we're going to build our own. So when we're in the event graph, in order to select them all, I think you can just do a Control A to select all. and then a delete to get rid of them. And they're all gone. So that's just cleaning it up. And now what we want to do is we want to create a new custom event. So if we create a custom event, what color is it going to be?
Red.
Red like the color of, I don't know what. Lord. I didn't say it. So it's going to be move to player. How do you create a custom event? Does anybody know? If you don't know, what if you just right click and say custom event? Add custom event. Look at that. Add custom event. Let's scroll in on this. Zip, 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 zip. There's a custom event. I think it's called move to player. That's how you create a custom event to start with. And from this move to player, you can pull out from the execution pin and you can place a new node. Your guide for the ride is right in here. This is what you're going to use. You can open up the Google Classroom to get your own copy of it. You're going to use AI move to, etc., etc., etc. So go ahead, take some time and get this set up. By the way, that is self, not elf. Somebody was confused by that earlier. And I'm going to try to pause my video here and give you guys a chance to kind of get that up to date. When this is done properly, I am going to show you on screen what this is done, what it looks like when it's done properly. Let me get to somebody who's got it done. Here's one that's got it done. So let's watch this on screen for a minute. Oh, this is just a screenshot.
Lame.
The purple guy.
Purple guy. Screenshot. MKV. Here we go. This one's got an MKV. Hopefully we can watch this. So here's some.
Oh, guy. I don't like that.
Bro.
I've seen this before.
Oh, why are you so fast? I don't know, but they're on it.
So they got the student name. You got the student
What
logo.
student name? They're being covered by the AI.
So I did put a sample out on the YouTube channel just from this morning. I think Liliana got one done that I grabbed a copy of. So I think I put it out there. Christian. Ding. Here we go.
They have like Minecraft cave.
Enderman sound effects.
All right, so this is from this morning.
Which guy's not ready?
Now I'm gonna add a collision to them, so if you get too close, then it kills you.
Yep.
He's so fast.
So you can play with the player speeds, you can play with the materials, and I want you to customize it.
Yeah, that would be great if you could record it.
I never realized I have 3 conversations going at the same time. I guess that makes sense. So this is something I expect that this session will be able to get done. You've got, enough time to get this done and to customize it. So let's get this done and let's get this turned in, please. Getting one done is fine because that would be the master, and then do 2 or 3 copies of it. Just follow those instructions right along. Once you get your code working, put one into the level. And then you're going to continue. That would basically be the starting point where you got it done. Then you're going to insert a couple more instances. So you're going to grab more versions of the blueprint into the level at different points. Once they're in the level, you can size them or scale them. Maybe you want to make one smaller or thinner, somehow different than the default, and each other. You can update the materials on the instances so the chasers look different from the player. Make sure your logo is on the chest of the player. Update the default text to your name. I'm going to get rid of this and. Delete the spinny green circle if it's in there. We don't want that. Build the lighting so you don't get a message about lighting needs to be rebuilt. And create a composite image with the blueprint and the in-game showing your work for submission, or record video gameplay. this is starting to come into something that's going to look interesting in your portfolios. Here's some optional things. Change each AI so that they have different speeds. That'll be on the properties in the world outliner. Update the scene textures to show a theme. Doesn't have to be in this space age kind of VR world if you don't want to. Customize it, make it fun. Record the gameplay, show the chase. Here's some samples. Look at this guy with all the minions following after him. Look at this one where they changed out the pawn so it's a capsule being chased by a sphere. Here's one where the student put their modeled Viking helmet, attached it to a socket on one of the pawns. This one's more standard, but they got stuff clearly. This clearly meets the requirements of the basic thing. They've got AI that's following it. They're showing their graph. Stephanie happened to catch kind of an action shot. So this should be fun. And Jacob took it one step further. He actually changed out the AI so it was tanks following him around. Yep. So this should be a fun activity. You should end up with some results that are portfolio worthy. We're in that realm of the curriculum, really at this point where it should be working. This is not lecture 13. This is lecture 3. I don't know why it says 13 up there. That's much better. Okay. I can pump up the new version of these instructions. I made a couple minor tweaks, but does anyone have any questions? Is it working for you? Did you have problems finding how to set up a custom event? Or if you have error messages, please let me know. I'm here to help. I don't expect you to do it all on your own. I do expect you to try. All right, let's get the required work done before we do our shenanigans, and let's have fun.